Welcome back to Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed. This is Julianne Hahn with my co-host, Brent Zopel.
Merrily, life is but a dream.
And what month is it? I'm asking you.
October.
It is.
Dyslexia Awareness Month.
Yep. And so this
Now,
episode...
what idiot picked it?
I know. Right. And you've heard us say this a million times, but we're going to keep saying it.
Breast cancer, right? What was the one you told me today? Herpes?
Oh, on
Herpes Awareness Month?
October. No.
Where the hell did you come up with that?
There's a day, the 13th or 14th or something like that. So it's going to be passed by the time this went out.
Why you know that?
Yes, because of the work that I'm doing. You're such an asshole. The work that I do in my proper job, we have some indications.
Now dyslexics aren't proper. Okay, I see how this is going now.
So we're going to set this up for Stephen Key. So sorry, Stephen. We're going to do a rerun, one of our favorite interviews. Okay. Stephen is the most incredible human. We both still keep in touch with him. He is awesome. Yeah. In this episode, you're going to listen to Stephen's first interview, basically talking about his dyslexia. He was on Your Next Stop a number of years ago. And then we put the dots together and I was like, oh my gosh, he's an inventor. Teddy Ruxpin, like an amazing guy.
I was just going to say, anybody in our little time frame and age will remember Teddy Ruxpin. He's the creator of Teddy Ruxpin.
Exactly. I mean, so cool. Yeah. He is so cool. He was a part of it. Worlds of Wonder. He worked at that company.
I think I used to suck my thumb in the corner with Teddy Ruxpin in my arms.
Right. I mean, Teddy Ruxpin was cool. And then he had Michael Jordan the backboard. That first backboard, that was like
the foam ball that goes in the back of every boy's bedroom. 100%. Yep. I don't know how many times I slam dunked that baby.
Exactly. So enjoy this episode with Stephen Key for Dyslexic Awareness Month 2024. Welcome, guys, to Word Blindness. And Brent, I mean, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because, I've been talking about Stephen since probably we've met. And Stephen, I've talked to you about Brent's story. I mean, both of your stories are so inspiring, but what we really talk about on this podcast is some of the hard stuff. As we said, not the negative, because I don't like that word. I'm the positive one. Brent is the realist.
Now we're changing. Okay.
Yes, I'm going to change that narrative a little bit. So Brent is the realist, and he really talks about things that are important. So, Brent, do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Go ahead. You're on a roll. This is your ship. You brought us all together. So, put up both hands and lead us.
Okay, great. Well, so Stephen, I'm going to give a little intro. I had the pleasure of meeting Stephen on one of my other podcasts. And we could have talked probably for days. So Stephen is the founder of InventRight. He is an inventor. And I became fascinating because I was like, wait, what do you do? What do you mean? This is so great. The creativeness. So the listeners know that just takes me down. Like, okay, well, how does your brain work? Where did that creativeness come from? So you can find Stephen everywhere. He is also an author. And One Simple Idea is one of his books, but he's also written for Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. I think he's got, thousands of articles. He also has tons of information on his YouTube channel, which is InventRight. So the other thing is Stephen is a giver. So he loves to really share, like, this is what he did, and he wants to help others do it without being like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. But then he does have the coaching program, which you can dive even deeper into it, but he gives you so much information. So LinkedIn, that's where Stephen lives the most. Stephen Key, again, he gives fun things, but he also, what I've loved as I followed you, Stephen, is you've gotten even more vulnerable as time has come on. And I know it's not the most comfortable. Brent and I talk about it all the time. Sometimes that vulnerability, that place is what's hard. But it's what people need to hear because so many people have trauma. So many people, everyone does. Everyone has trauma to a different level. And what we talk here, obviously, is about dyslexia. This is word blindness. Stephen, to give you a little background, word blindness is what dyslexia was referred to in the 1800s. So it's been around that long. Yeah. And don't get Brent started.
I had the same face. I'm like, what? 1900s?
No. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you for that great introduction. So thank you so much.
So Brent, you can ask the first question if you want, or we can just have, Stephen start telling the story.
Steven,
But go.
Obviously you do have, you got a great history, great background. But the one word that caught me that, through that whole thing was giving. You're always giving. It's yes, you've done some amazing things. Inventor and book writer, but the one word that caught me right there in that whole thing is was giving. Now, why? Now I'm going to ask why. Why are you a giver?
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out myself. Actually, I think I'm thankful that I didn't think there was a place for me.
Yes.
This so-called learning disability that I have kind of created an individual that was just hiding. Mm-hmm. I was always hiding. I was a master at hiding. And I didn't think there was a place for me. And that this difficulty communicating or writing or reading, I was just different. I didn't think anybody would hire me. I thought it was just kind of this, I don't know, just kind of floating. So when I found something I was actually pretty good at, and I was so thankful for it. I was thankful that it worked, and I just wanted to talk about it. I guess I was so quiet for so many years that once you took the lid off that container, you can't shut me up now. So yeah, I'm very thankful, and I don't think I can give enough. It's impossible. Yeah.
I mean, I love that. And again, because when you were on my other podcast, you gave us a little history of when you were growing up. And one of the things that you said that I still think about is that someone said to you, and I think it was your father or it was one of your friends, said, if you find something that you love, you'll be the richest man ever. Was that your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my father gave me permission to jump off a cliff, which was really brave at the time. I didn't realize it. He didn't give me any tools to get down from the cliff, but he told me to jump, and he gave me permission to jump, and I did. And my father knew that if I found something I truly would love to do, I'd probably never work a day in my life. And he was spot on with that. He was right. Where I think most parents would have said, no, you need to do that because that's safe. My father didn't look at it that way. He didn't say very much. He was a very quiet guy, but he gave me permission to try something that was really gutsy.
Interesting. And now to branch off that, you just said he didn't give any tools to get down. Did he even know what those tools would have been?
No.
Yeah.
No. And that's why I cannot blame anybody. It's funny. I've talked recently in the last couple of years. I've talked a little bit about growing up, and I didn't know I was someone at risk. I guess I was a child at risk. I didn't know that's what it was even called, but I was that child, and my parents did the best job they could, but it at the time, I don't think they knew what to do, really. It was just a timing, but they gave me the ability to dream. They did do that. And they let me have the freedom to let my imagination run wild. That's one thing they did. They gave me that gift. How to use that gift, how to channel that gift into something that was productive. No, they had no clue. So I had to figure that out. And it took me a little while to figure that out. But they never told me what to do. They never tried to discourage me. They never said anything that, you're not succeeding. Why don't you do something else? They never said anything of those things to me. Yeah. So, but I do remember,
powerful, very, very powerful, right? Right there.
I was surprised, and looking back, it wasn't perfect at all, but they did the best job they could. And at the time, no one really knew what to do with people that have this superpower. Now I know it's a superpower. I didn't realize it at the time. It's like, what's wrong with me? And why is this so easy for everybody else? I just couldn't figure that out. In fact, I remember sitting in my car. I'm 44 5, I think. And I'm just frustrated. My kids are going through school and they're bright and they're brilliant. And I'm so happy they didn't get anything I actually got. And I went into this store for teachers where you could buy learning materials for classroom. And I bought 3 books, first, second, and third grade books. And I thought I was just going to sit in this car and I'm going to read that. And I'm going to fix what's wrong with me. And I sat in that parking lot. I got all 3 and I was so excited about it. I said, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this problem I have. And I sat there and I read it as much as I could. I ended up just eventually taking all 3 and throwing them in the garbage because it wasn't going to work. Yeah. So I've been fighting that difficulty a little bit about who I am for a long time. Yeah.
I mean, and I remember because that was one of the things when we talked offline after the podcast, because again, you are very, very successful. You've been and you're self-made success, and that's where a lot of times we see that, right? Oh, you had dyslexia. Oh, but look what you've done. But we don't talk about the journey. And I have to say I've stuffed to the journey. Brent knows. The realists have brought some of that out, been like, oh, damn it. Okay. When school starts, I have my son is dyslexic, one of my children, dysgraphic, and every year I forget the anxiety that I put upon myself that I don't even realize I'm doing. And I am a complete and utter mess. So emotional. And my family kind of knows about it, but I don't always, like, I know what's happening, but like only maybe like I have a good friend. My husband does because he, I will usually explode at some point in there and he's like, what's happening? And then I will just kind of like become a puddle. And he's like, okay, I didn't realize this was happening. And it happens every year in September. And still I'm going to be 50. And it's still one of those things that it's just like, oh, I just know what he's going through entering school, even though I was social. So I liked certain aspects of school. I was athletic. So I liked certain aspects of school, but there's so much that I just stuffed because I was like, I don't like those feelings. And Brent is very open and we talk about, that, and again, it's not the negative, the realist side of when you struggle, and it doesn't matter how personable you are, you do hide. I mean, I so many times would hide in the classroom, shrink and hide in certain social like things. And I think about it now and I'm like, I was so social, but anytime things got a little bit where I was like, I don't know if I know about that, I would either go off and do something else or change the figure a way not to have to be asked questions, like, hey, people asking math, weird, random, how do we do this and this? And I'm getting out of here. Right. I mean, and I know Brent, you have you have a lot to add.
No, it's funny. We're all talking the same language and, in different terms, it's, you went up to that store. I don't know how many times I went into that store with my kids and, I'm looking at the racers or the scratch and sniff thing because this is all I get. Or, there's that TV show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I'm like, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? No. And I use a lot of humor as a defense mechanism, to get around it. But, you sitting in that car, brings back so many memories. And people don't understand when you go to school for 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, that's years of built up trauma. It's not a one-time thing. It keeps going on. You refer to you're going to be 50 and it keeps coming back. Well, for me, it was 12 years of absolute misery for 8 hours a day. It could have made a TV show, You're Smarter Than a First Grader. Absolutely not.
It's interesting that you mentioned the hiding because you don't want to be exposed. Yeah. Right. And so you're looking at details. I still do. I check out everything. I get the places early. I check out the situation. I need to know where everything is kind of. And so I'm always adjusting the situations because I'm so used to not wanting to be exposed, kind of like. I also didn't realize the impact it really has had on me, to tell you the truth. I just kind of wanted to forget about it a little bit, or bury it, right? Or not like, I wouldn't say, definitely not acknowledge it, that I have an issue, but it didn't stop me from raising my hand to do something that I probably wasn't capable of doing. I didn't do that. I figured,
Really?
I figured out a way around all the obstacles, and the ones that I couldn't, I just avoided. You're right. You just kind of get out of the room as fast as you can, which is kind of, I would even freak out if I was in a doctor's office and I had to fill out a form, and I look at all of it, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here.
This is his,
now
yeah.
I have a cheat sheet on my phone now that I can look at all of it. I'm a little bit more relaxed. I can fill it out because I've got all the information.
I call it fear. Juliet, I call it fear of the clipboard. You walk in the doctor's office, they hand you the clipboard. I just hand it right back. I'm out. See ya. Nighty night.
I cannot tell you how many times that I was willing to do it, probably did do that, or say, why am I filling this out? I just filled it out last time I was here. Yeah. I don't need to fill this out. I would find every excuse not to fill it out.
And I was an asshole. Why am I doing this again? Just purposely get caught up a stir. So sometimes that they do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to look at another side to this. I guess it made me very determined to be okay. Like, kind of like, I know I'm okay. I know I'm smart, but something's not quite right. So I'm going to overdo it a little bit. So what I would do, I would go overboard. If someone, from sports to homework, whatever it was, I would just go overboard. Right. So homework would take me hours. I would still memorize everything I could possibly memorize the best I could. Or for sports, when everybody went home, no, I worked harder than everybody else. It did teach me to work hard and overcome that problem, I think, a little bit. Right. So, and even today, I still have that work ethic. Right. And so I think I wish I knew a little bit more about this at a younger age. It would have made my life a lot easier. I did some dangerous things too because of it. Right. I got myself in dangerous situations. And I haven't talked about that yet. That's probably coming next.
That can be our part two.
Well, a few people know about some of the situations I got myself into, and they're like, when are you going to tell that story? Wow. There's so much to unload. Right. So I'm kind of hesitant about it. But I do think people need to hear it, because I think there's a lot of people that are struggling. I do. And there's no vehicle.
Never be hesitant around us, because we all have it too. They never, we're all walking in the same shoes, different sizes, different angles. Juliet, your mind might be a little bit more pitched in the heels, but never. You're not walking this path alone, because there's two other ones here sitting right here that have and resonate with every single word that you're saying.
I mean, I have to say, the reason why I'm smiling so much, and I know, Stephen, you're talking about stuff that hurts, but I'm smiling and looking at Brent because this is stuff that we talk about every week. This is stuff that we've talked about so many different times. And there's so many as you said, there's so many layers to it. And one of the things that you said that I found interesting, and I know Brent did, but because I'm very much like that. Like, I, even in my adult life, say yes to things because I know I can figure it out. Like, Brent is not that. He's like, even though I've had to pull out of him. I'm like, it's a little different. But even when I was in the corporate world, I would go and interview for jobs that were completely out of my reach. But I was like, this is a challenge. I'm going to get this job because I can interview like no one's business. I can get this job. And then I would get it and I'd be like, oh shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I would have to find the person in the company that I was like, okay. And it was just like the person in the classroom. I needed to find that person in the classroom that I could go, what did the teacher just say? I don't understand. Can you take me through this? What am I supposed to be doing now? And I was always really, really good at that. But that's one of my gifts that I do believe I was born with. I talk about, and I just had this conversation with my dad, who's the one that is dyslexic, this past weekend about, and Brent knows because I've talked about this many times, is the innate confidence. Some of us are just born with innate confidence. Like I have my older sister's dyslexic. We have a completely different makeup. She did not have the innate confidence. My mom would sometimes, like even to this day, she's like, sometimes I would be like, I don't understand. You shouldn't be this confident in this situation. This is not a time for confidence. But I just would. But that is, I think, who I was born with. But yes, I had supportive parents, but I was that person that was just determined. Even though I shrunk a lot of times in the classroom, I shrunk in certain situations, I was determined to prove it to myself, because I'm not like, I'm super, super competitive, but it's not like I'm competitive for the next person to be better than them. I don't care. Like, I'm happy for you to what you're doing. I don't need to be better than you, but I want to prove to myself that I can do something. And I think that I was just born with that.
Well, I was the youngest. And so there's a lot of layers here. My brother wasn't very kind to me. So I had to fight that fight along with fighting everybody in the school because of the teasing. So it was always a fight. Every day was a fight. And I guess I just got through it. But looking back, I was telling everybody, I've been failing since the second grade. I'm pretty much comfortable with it. I wouldn't say it's my friend. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a good friend of mine because we've been together for so long. I don't know what to do without
You're best friends now.
And I guess I'm not afraid to fail today, right? Because I've been so comfortable with that. Maybe I wasn't always so comfortable with it. I am comfortable with it now because it doesn't scare me anymore. It doesn't frighten me anymore. It doesn't. I'll tell you one thing that's changed. When I was tested for dyslexia, and when I actually saw the test results, right, everything changed because now it was proof. It wasn't like I knew something was wrong. Something wasn't quite right. No, here's the proof. And they told me that if I went back to school today, how the situation would be different. It would be completely different. That's when I finally realized, oh shit, this is really a big problem. And I was able to overcome it the best I could.
Yeah, that's interesting because people ask me that same question, because I didn't find out till I was 32. When you found out, what changed? I'm like, nothing.
Well, I actually have my report right here on my desk.
Really?
Like, why is that on your desk?
Wow.
I wanted to read it again. I had it buried. I brought it out because I wanted to kind of look at it again. And it freed me, kind of. Like, okay, Steve, it is what it is. I can't change it. And I can accept it and I can talk about it because it is real. It's not just what I'm thinking. No, it's a real deal. And I survived it. Right. And I survived it in such a way that, I'm proud. I guess I'm proud. I guess if someone said, what are you the most proud of? What's your biggest accomplishment? I think is surviving this. Wow. I hadn't really thought about it, but I would say absolutely 100%. Yes, I survived this. And I would hate for anybody else to have to go through it. It's absolutely 100% life-altering, game-changer, the worst thing could happen. If you don't have help doing it, you're in for a rough road here. And,
that's powerful. That's very powerful right there.
So, yeah.
It's, you did survive it. We've all survived it. We're here today. We're here in different aspects. The athletic side of me is what kept me alive. That was the only thing I was good at. You talked about working hard. I was always rated the slowest and ugliest in the league, but I was always, I would work harder than anybody, long hair, ugly, missing teeth, slow as hell. But, I'd stay out there longer and, I didn't care. Steve, I always said the pain of a broken bone, I've got screws hanging out, like popping out of my elbow, I had screws here. The pain of the real world for me was more painful than breaking a bone.
So one of the things that I'm kind of just like all of a sudden in my brain, because, I do this curious thing where then I like to ask questions. I am curious, George. But what's interesting is that Stephen and I we said the same thing. Like we would throw ourselves into anything. Now you didn't really get a chance to throw yourself into anything. First of all, because you went into you were gone from your house at 16 years old, right? School, Canadian, different than US, first of all. Second of all, you didn't even it just was a different situation altogether, but you didn't get a chance to throw yourself into things that you maybe weren't good at. Like we didn't have a choice, I think. And I'm just talking off the top of my head. So you were in the league, you were succeeding, but as you said, every day you were didn't think that you made it. You were always nervous that you were, be thrown out into the real world. What were you going to do? What were you going to do? We kind of had to be thrown out. Now here's also the difference, and these are stereotypes, but a man with dyslexia and learning disabilities versus a woman with learning disabilities, an age thing, right? Because generational, it kind of changes as well. But when you guys were talking about the doctors, I'm the one that took the kids to all the doctors. I had to fill it out for 3 kids and myself. And it was fucking torture. I'd be but do you know what I mean? I would be oh my God. And half of the time I knew I was misspelling it, but it was I had to get it done for the kids. So it was I had to figure it out. Right. So I think probably I was put in situations where it was I didn't have a choice. I either was going to drown or I was going to make it, where not that being in the league, because you had to work your ass off. I mean, there's it's less than 1% that get where you are. But then in real life, you didn't have those skills because you never had to kind of sharpen those skills, because it was this is what you had to work on. But I would never be obviously a professional athlete. First of all, I'm a woman, and there's, different man leagues and all that kind of thing. But I'm just curious on both of your thoughts as I just kind of threw up and and thought about that.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I think the biggest fright was, how do I make a living?
Right.
How do I married this amazing woman. She was everything I wasn't. She was smart and educated, and I had to kind of live in that world a little bit with these 3 kids. And how do I make a living when I cannot fill out a form? I mean, so what do I do? So I guess looking back, that was probably the most pressure I probably put on myself. What do I do? So yeah, I learned to hustle at a pretty early age. I started putting down all the things I did. I was selling door to door at 18, at 21. I started looking at all the weird stuff I did, and it was all selling, because that didn't require me to fill out anything. So that's how I guess I did it. So I guess I had some tools. I think the sport angle, the sports is really interesting too, because it saved me, not to the degree it saved Brent. No, I was very lucky that I had a choice. I could either go across the street and smoke cigarettes with those kids, because that door opened very easy for me. But I did the sports. But I loved the sports so much that I didn't go across the street. I couldn't do that, right? So I had to stay on that path, and I learned some really great tools in life from sports. So It saved me a little bit, but I'm sure it saved you tremendously. But then again, what do you do afterwards? That to me would be very frightening.
And that's, a couple things you said there. I tell parents all the time that it's easier to go across the street and smoke cigarettes for us than it is not. I obviously I was lucky enough. I think I'm less than 10,000 in the world. And I entered the world at, 40. You guys entered it at 20. So, you're talking about door to door at 18 and, you had to walk in and you had to do those things,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
My scars, obviously, there wasn't a day when I played pro hockey for 18 years. I think average career is 5. There wasn't a day, not one day ever, I thought I made it. I was looking over my shoulder always. Who's coming to get my, who's coming after me? My highs were high when confidence, was what could have been one of the best players. But when I was down, my roller coasters were high, highs and lows. And my parents, did the best job. They did a great job. They didn't know what it was back in Canada. Never heard the word. But now, let me tell you, it's the real world is not an easy place. Entering it at 40 with no job experience, no education, and these wonderful learning disorders. And, it's, am I able to do some things that most people look at me like, how do you see that? How do you do that? How do you function? Absolutely. And I do the same thing to people every day. How are you able to do that? What am I, almost 47? I'm like, so is there pain every day? Always will be. I don't think my pain will ever go away because I've never been that. I haven't gotten to the point, Stephen, you said that you're okay. I am okay, but I'm still in that scraping to make a life, make a living, survive, provide at almost 50.
Well, what's really interesting that you said you're always looking over your shoulder. I don't know if that ever really goes away. And I always thought it was because of I'm an entrepreneur. I don't get a paycheck. So maybe that's why I'm always thinking the wolf's at the door.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think there's something more than that because of what you just said. I think the wolf's at the door because of it's always been at the door, and I'm always not sure myself to a certain degree. I am a little bit, I think I could overcome it, but still there's always that doubt of, I know what it's like to not make it kind of or struggle. I know that. So the wolf is at the door for me too.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's any amount of success is ever going to take that away. I just don't think that goes away. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I kind of wish it wasn't there, but I don't think you do your best work when your back isn't really up against the wall a little bit, kind of for me anyway. If life is so easy and things are great, I don't do my best work.
It's funny, Julia, did you say that last week too?
I did. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I mean, because Stephen, since we've talked, I've just I've taken on a new job role. I'm still doing my podcast, but I am the chief communications officer for this amazing company that's coming out. And I am now on calls with scientists and all these things that those classes I hated. Even I'm dyslexic. I was the science and the math is where I really struggled. And I have to a little bit, there's been days where I've had to remind myself, like, you were hired for a reason. Stop. You're not hired to be the scientist. So just stop, listen and learn it and learn what you can learn and then bring what you bring, because I know I have such strengths, but I know, this job, we just hired a PR company and I was like, listen, please, I'm not hiring you if you send me pages of emails and I'm not responding back in pages of emails. If I need to get something done, I'm going to need to jump on a call or leave a voice note. And they were like, that's totally fine. You hired us. But I had to say that with every single PR company that we're in. But the thing that's so amazing, and you'll love this, and we can talk more about this offline, is one of the co-founders, she's dyslexic severely. So she and I are like, we are so in sync. So we would start meetings and that's what she would say. Like, she'd be like, we're dyslexic. Do not do this. This is how we work. But we also have been through so much shit. We also played sports. So I've known her. We played lacrosse together. But it is really interesting when you say that, because I am a confident person. As I said, innate confidence. I am confident, but there are times where I have to pause myself to be like, whoa, what's happening right now? I don't like this feeling. What's going on? It's having a little lack of confidence in certain situations, because I know, okay, I mean, we were on a huge meeting and they were like, hey, can you read the screen? And I read it wrong in front of a whole group of people. And they're like, oh my God, did we misspell something? And I was like, nope. I was like, I'm dyslexic. I was like, I just got to throw it out there. But I was literally sweating, like, I just read out loud. Like, there's things that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I am where I am. I'm finished school, but I still get that anxiety.
Glad you were able to tell them, though.
Oh, I say it all the time now.
Yes, I think I'm not comfortable with that yet.
I know.
Because I've been in situations, I was asked to be on a board of directors, which I've never been on a board of directors. This a few years ago. And I'm reading all the rules and I'm thinking, God, I'll never get this straight, right? And they might call on me to write on the board. And here you've got these high level guys. And I'm like, why am I here? And I'm like, what if they call me up? What am I going to say? Right? I'm going to be a fraud. They're going to see me and go, what's wrong with you? So, but I haven't found the freedom to go, hey, look, you guys, that's not going to really work for me. Right? There's another way I can communicate a little bit differently, but I haven't found a way to bridge that yet. So I'm still like hiding there a little bit, kind of doing that. So that's remarkable that you can do that and say that, right? And just say, that's not my learning. That's not the way I do it. And I think
she's got confidence. Just ask her. She's going to tell you,
I like it.
You know what I do too. And I'm amazed by it. Again, call me the realist. I don't have, I'll say it, but I've been let down so many times that I don't believe anybody. I don't trust anybody. So I look up at Juliette, and with astounding awe that she's that confident about with it. And
I think, but it's because of all the stuff I've gone through. And I'm also like, you know what? I was never, again, I think I was just born with this. I never really cared what someone thought of me. I was like that. Like if someone's talking bad about me, I'm like, I'm a very nice person. Like and I'm not ego. So like, I need to put that there, but I'm like, I'm a very nice person. Why wouldn't they like me? I would never, like, I'm a good time. I'm fun. I'm nice. I'm, like, this is, there shouldn't be anything. Yeah, I know, totally. But you know what I'm saying? So I always thought it was someone else's problem. And again, it's not coming from an ego place. It's coming from, I think it definitely comes from genes. I think my dad is similar to that, but I also think it was the way we were raised. I mean, I was one of 5. It was like we all knew what our gifts were and what we struggled at, and it was like it's okay, right? But I think having a dad. I mean, Brent and I both have children that we're raising. There's days though that I'm like, I just pray that he is going to be okay. And I innately know he is, but some of the days, like the beginning of school and the things that like I could feel in him that I know, okay, he's totally spinning, and how can I help him? Because I'm also his mom and he's a teenager, and that I'm annoying. My teenagers actually don't like me. But most people do. It's hard.
Looking back when I have 3 kids, and looking back, wondering, am I passing this along?
Yeah.
And waiting to see when this thing is going to happen. It didn't.
Now, if you have grandkids, you have to know that it quite possibly could.
But I have a different perspective on it. I think now I can look at it and go, wow, this is, you're not different, you're unique. Like if someone says, it's not different, you're unique. Okay, I get that. But you really have to help that person understand that. And I don't know if you can allow the system to help with that.
No, you can't.
Even my wife was a teacher for 15 years, and she still tries to teach me things. I'm like, no. I go, it doesn't work. So you better surround yourself with people that do understand it, that understand that you're going to need a lot of support and help and to overcome all those, because your confidence is so wrapped up in your self-image. And at that age, it could be just crushed. I was... So getting back to the word giving, because I think when people get to know me, they understand that now, right? They understand the difficulties and they understand what I had to go through. And then so I'm just so thankful. Gee, you got to be kidding me. It worked out okay. It did. It worked out better than okay. But boy, it could have gone the other direction. In fact, it did. It did go the other direction at times.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, I talk about the bad side, cause a bad side. So everybody knows what it is. It's all of us been there. It's you talked about your wife being a teacher. Is this whole thing that is all about education. Everybody wants to, why don't they change the school district? Why don't this school district do it this way? You're asking a non-dyslexic to change something they have no idea about. Well, how about let's educate them about it first? I always say, let's educate first, then try and change, because we're trying to change before education. I'm not very smart, but I don't think that works.
No, and that's Brent's, that's his whole foundation. That's what it's so important. And Brent is also a super giving person. I think that's the thing, that when we are in these situations and we've seen what we've overcome and what we've done, nothing is ever going to be easy. That's one of the things I always, even when my son was young, I would say to him, nothing's ever going to be easy. So you just have to work hard. You just have to let it, sometimes things have to slide off your back, because you know what? And you can't let what people say affect you in certain ways. Because, right, we've had teachers that have said things to us, kids that say things to us. But one of the things is the self-esteem. And that's where Brent and his foundation, and the way he coaches, it's all about self-esteem. If you can hold that, I have nieces and nephews that are going through, right now testing. And I just say to their parents, because it's a sibling of mine and his wife, and they are not dyslexic, and they're very, very educational. And I just get this pit, because they're like, well, we're just doing more workbooks. We're just doing more workbooks. And I'm like, oh, fuck the workbooks. I was like, oh my God. Okay. Okay. But everyone has their different philosophy, right? And you have to do it. But every time I just say to them, it's about her self-esteem. That is the most important. You can maintain that self-esteem. And I think that's where I was very fortunate. Even though I shrunk in other places, I had a good group of friends. I played sports. And so I had my gifts, even though I had those weaknesses that, yes, I used to hide. I pretended like I didn't, right? We were just talking about, I had a friend that would always be like, oh, I failed that test. And I'd be like, I failed too. And she would get a 98 and I would get a 35. And I'd be like, you didn't fucking fail the test. I hate when you say that. It used to drive me insane. She'd be like, wow, you really failed that test. And I'm like, yeah, I said I was going to fail it.
Failing the test, didn't you understand?
Yeah, I was like, because she didn't get 100 to her, but I was like, okay, you know what? We all have to take in those kind of things, right? I'm not to her, she did not do well, and I can't fault her for that. And I didn't, even though I was like, oh my God, she's like 35, I would die. And I'm like, yeah. Thanks.
I was pumped with the 35. I'm like, yes, 35.
You got a couple right?
I must have cheated or found a way around it, or had someone write papers for me. I'm looking back, that was my life, to find a way around every test, every obstacle, every, being in that boardroom thinking, how do I get out of the situation if they call me? I've got a strategy here, man. And I think it was that attitude was like a daily thing for me. It was daily of
your defense mechanisms.
trying to get by. I was just trying to survive to get by.
So you're like, I didn't get the 35 because I learned to cheat. Yes, I wasn't very good at it until I got older, and then I figured out how I could cheat to get my way through. So yeah,
I didn't have to cheat. Teachers are just, I write my name on the final, hand it in. I got like a 60 because you're the hockey player that's going. So I didn't even get those skills to cheat. I got the best defense mechanism in the world, but in the same breath, I probably get hurt more than you guys. Like today, I've asked for some help with my golf event, and I've been let down. Mm-hmm. So with not my ability to cheat, I got defense mechanisms, but entering the real world so late that things hit me differently harder. Like today, I'm like, could I cry right now? I am, by being let down by people that I would never let down.
Right. Because you're very, very loyal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess being let down for so often, it's kind of weird to think that that's what I'm comfortable with. Mm-hmm. Right. That's something that I wear every day. And I'm still in the game. I'm in the rejection game now as a profession. You would think that I would have ran from that, right? But I guess I was so comfortable with it. It's like, okay, this is normal. Right. Come on, everybody. Tell me no. It's okay. I'll get back up and do it again. So I guess it's, looking back over all of it, it's prepared me to do what I do today, right? To take the no's, to take the rejections and not really let it affect me personally. I get irritated by it. Trust me. To the point of like, I'm going to show you.
Right.
I never thought it would all add up to make me probably pretty tough. And if you ask my wife if I was tough, she says, you're the softest man I've ever met.
Well, dyslexics also we feel deeper. I mean, we are empath. I mean, I am so empathetic. There's times where it exhausts me. And I know Brent he knows it the same way. And I know, Stephen, you do. I mean, I know my son, even though he has I've seen him get harder over the years, and it hurts my heart because I know, but then I'm like, I guess it's, there are those defense mechanisms, but being empaths, when you feel so deeply for someone and you see them struggling and you just want to help so badly, but people have to go through their own life journeys. But that's why we're doing this podcast, to share these kind of stories, to talk about these things. I've had so many teachers and people reach out from, of us doing this, people from high school that were like, oh my gosh, we were in the same, SPEDI class, which is terrible, but that's what we called it. I didn't realize that you were dyslexic. I knew that, we weren't great in school. And I'm like, I didn't realize you were dyslexic either. It's because we didn't talk about it then. We just knew we had this understanding because I was a girl in the classes with most of the troublemaking boys, right? There was not a lot of girls in those classes.
I was very quiet. And, I think people read that the wrong way. Mm-hmm. I think they thought I was just a plain jerk. But I don't think they realized I was just quiet, that I didn't want to say something incorrectly and I didn't know how to contribute. And I thought I was maybe not capable of contributing. So I was just the quietest guy. In fact, my wife, when she first met me, she goes, yeah, you're the silent guy in the back of the room. You were mysterious. Shit, I was just surviving. What do you mean mysterious?
Oh, I love that she put a spin on that, though. Sexy, mysterious, right?
That's great.
No, so it's
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I was looking at writing some of the articles. I call them raw. You're right. To really deep to share some stuff pretty deep, and I made a list of all these things I want to talk about and I want to share, and they're really awful actually, but I'm going to share them anyway. But I saw a picture of when I was in first grade, when life was just amazing, right? You didn't start that process of spelling and all that kind of stuff. And I look at this picture and I'm in the class, and it's a school picture, and I'm just amazing. The world it's just this incredible place as a little boy. And then I look at the picture when I'm in like third grade or second grade, and it's not the same guy. It's not the same kid. It's like, what the world had just landed on someone's shoulders. And I didn't really see the visual until I looked at it. Then I thought, yeah, that's when everything changed. And I could see it on my face.
It's interesting you said that, because I remember grade 3 picking up a desk and throwing it at a kid. So I was already, to your point, the world was on your shoulders. I was already an angry kid by then.
They held me after school because the kids were so, they found a weakness. Kids have a tendency to want to do that, and they found one, and they jumped on it. And so I was getting in trouble after school, so they figured, well, we'll just hold. So everybody went home, and I stayed, and then they let me go home. So it starts. That anger starts. That anger started then.
Yeah. And I became the class clown. I was the clown. I wasn't like, I just became the silly one, the ditz, the one that talked to her friends too much, wasn't allowed to sit near her friends, but really it was because I was asking my friends for help. Like, I wasn't doing anything other than just, I don't know what I'm doing. What's the answer? Yeah.
No, it's amazing as we've gone here through this conversations, how it's brought me back and to a lot of it, a lot of that pain again, brought me back, a lot of my sadness, opening up, a lot of my wounds by just listening to hear some of the things you guys are saying.
Well,
happy Tuesday.
Well, someone, another gentleman that did a TED talk that explained to me during this talk how really how impactful this is to kids and their self-esteem, that most people that have a learning disability become alcoholics, which I didn't know was so high, or end up in prison. Oh, geez. I'm
one of them.
Yeah, it's just, so I feel very fortunate I was able to skate around that to a certain degree. Did I put myself in danger occasionally? Yeah, I did. And yes, I was someone at risk. I was a child at risk. And I never would consider that. I never even knew that people were aware of people like that. But yes, I was in that group. And
we give off, what you give off is what you attract. And you give off pain, you attract pain. I've just passed 7 years sober. Doing drugs and alcohol. God, I loved it. I miss it every day. Because it takes away this pain that we're talking about right now. If I could escape it every day, I would.
Well, I just didn't know that common thread was, and makes sense to me now, realizing there's a big hole. There's a big hole there. And why would I have a hole in, I started looking when I was getting in trouble. There was a big hole there. Because why would someone be doing that at that age? It made no sense to me when you look back and go, well, yeah, now I know why I was doing that. But why did I learn this at such an old age? I wish I had discovered this years ago, right? So if anything, hopefully these type of talks can open the door for people to realize it doesn't have to be this way, right? There could be change. I wish I had known this such a long time ago. I don't know if I would have done anything differently, or maybe a different perspective. But I'll tell you, holding all that in for so many years.
No, and that's not healthy. And one of the things that, and Brent, I would love for you to talk about it, like what Brent wants to do with his foundation, what he's doing because of the early detection, right? Like my child, Brent's child, they were diagnosed early. Now, we knew we had learning disabilities in my family, right? I wasn't diagnosed until I was in college, but it was, and so I have some of those scars, but again, it was like talked about a little bit more because my older sister struggled. Like we struggled in school, so it was like a kind of a common thread, and my dad struggled. So it was like, okay, you got it from him, right? That's where it kind of came from. But what Brent is doing with the foundation about the early neuropsych is so important. Brent, do you just want to kind of like just talk a little bit about that so Stephen can, I know he's going to be so excited about that.
Obviously, a couple things is that self-esteem. Everybody talks about and reading and math. I don't give a shit if you don't like yourself. If you're not enjoying what you're doing or who you are, you're not going to learn. I don't care if you're 5 years old or you're 55 years old. So first off is, how are you as a person? Right now is the big thread going college football. Well, school's all they talk about. Well, that's not for everybody. So now you've got the ones that didn't go to school who are like us, who are sitting in a home with no self-esteem because that's all you hear is the word college. Foundation, so that's, I don't care about reading. I don't care about writing. I care about the self-esteem. Where are you today? What are you at? And that neuropsych portion is, yes, you can give a 10 question, find out if you're dyslexia or not, but 40% of us have ADHD. So why are we going to test for half the problem? How fair is that? That's not fair. It's taking that neuropsych and making it more accessible, so that you can have that and find out everything. They'll test for every single thing. Is it Asperger's? Is it autism? ADHD? What is it? Now, at least now you can go to the school in maybe grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 4 and know what that is. The less scars that we can create for anybody, the better it is. Yes, mine are massive because I didn't find out until I was 32. Both of you have scars less than mine because you found it at an early age. We all want to find cancer at stage 1, not stage 4. And that's the big thing for the foundation is take a completely different approach. Everybody's like, Orton Gillingham and Wilson. I don't care. Because if you don't like who you are, and if you're embarrassed to go to school every day, if you're this, or you're told you're dumb and stupid and this and that, you're never, doesn't matter. I can hand you whatever, you're not going to learn. So let's get that self-esteem up. What are you good at? What do you like doing? Where's that smile? I need to see that smile on that face again. It's in doing, when I talk to parents, it's just, doing different analogies in different ways just to find out who they are and working with the parents. Because, if it's the parent doesn't have it, they've got no idea and they never will. That teacher that they're, in whatever grade with, they don't have it. They've got no idea. So it's, it's an education, it's the education about it, around it, and the understanding of what this all is, is why the foundation is just taking a completely different approach than I've seen most of them.
Well, I tell you, if you can get it early and you could help that self-esteem, which can come from a lot of, when you really think about all the different things you could do to grow that, right? And have someone find something they're really good at, that's going to overcome a lot of problems, right? Because we're not good at everything, but if we find that one thing that we really, really feel we enjoy, we wake up, we're excited about it, puts a smile on your face, you can overcome a lot of those stuff. I found that one thing with sports that helped me get over a tough area. I was good at that. I practiced it. I knew it. I learned a lot from it. Without that, forget it. It would have been a whole different story.
But it's so, yeah. I mean, and that's what's so true. And that's what, like, we talk about a lot, when parents come and talk to us, like, well, I'm doing the after school tutoring. I'm throwing it down my kids' throat. Oh, they can't do their sport or they can't do the thing that they love. And I'm like, no. Don't do that. You need to find that thing. And that's why I remember throwing my kids into everything. I was like, just try everything, because a lot of times finding the things that you don't like is way easier than finding the thing that you like. Right. And as when we're talking about kids that are older too, it's like you're 18. You shouldn't know what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like, don't put that pressure on yourself, especially if you sucked at school and you hated it. And I mean,
whole new podcast right there.
Right. I mean, right. And I know, we've talked about that, but that's the thing is if anyone's listening to this and they can take a couple of things from it, we've shared a lot of different things. I know we're coming to the end here, but we shared a lot of different things. We shared a lot of stuff about self-esteem. We shared stuff about our own stories. You could feel and see our faces that we really agreed with everything that each other said. And that's a common thread. A lot of times Brent and I will talk about, if you're talking to someone that doesn't understand, you could just see in their face, they will be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that sometimes is very frustrating. You have to then let me try to explain this where they can understand. But when you have a common thread of struggling, going through school a similar way, it's an understanding. And that's what these stories are about. That's why we are doing this podcast, to get those stories out, to connect with more people. And parents, yes, a parent that doesn't understand what it is like for a child to have dyslexia. I mean, I've talked to so many moms or dads, but mainly moms, that it's their husband that, is dyslexic. And they're like, I just don't understand why they can't do it. And I'm like, please, 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 please. If I can just do anything, like, I know I was protected. Even though my mom didn't have it, she understood it. And so I was protected in the space. She would fight for me. She was my advocate. And that's, what I do. And I know Brent was the same for his daughter and still is. That is what I do for my son still. Like, he's like, Mom, I got this. I can do it. And like the first day of school, I'm getting text. Okay. They haven't even looked at the IEP. This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. And I'm like, I call and I'm like, hi, this is Mrs. Hahn. Yeah. So this shit needs to stop right now. And but he knows, and he just texts me, thanks, Mom. But he's,
So you didn't go in that sweet talk that quick.
No, I didn't. No, I kind of went psycho right away. But they know me a little bit now. But those are the things. You need to have those advocates. You need to have those people that understand. And the more understanding that we can put out there by sharing stories, we're hoping to help more people. The foundation, what Brent is doing by spreading the word, but also, and I know he says he doesn't care about the reading and all of that. He does. What he's saying is it's about self-esteem first, but that's where it's starting with that, and then building. It's the building blocks of what you do. You get that kid like, okay, I'm confident in some things, I can be more relaxed. When you are struggle, and I'm going to leave kind of with this and then I'll let you guys finish this up. But I remember, and Brent is always fascinated by this too. So we knew Montgomery was dysgraphic because his name is Montgomery. Sorry. It's a long name. I know. And my mom had said, are you sure you want to name with all our learning disabilities that's a tough name? Do you even know how to spell that? And I'm like, no, I have to say it in my head, but whatever. I'm going to figure it out. I love the name. Anyways. So it's Motgomry. Yeah. It's hard. It's not an easy one. Yeah. So he memorized, because we listened to a lot of books. I talked, surprise, surprise, all the time. So I literally would talk, be like, there's a tree, TRE, I used to do these things with my kids. So he had this vocabulary and he loved to read signs. It was torture for a bit because I'd be like, I don't want to read that sign. But he was that kid that was curious and wanted to know these things. So by the time he was in second grade, he would memorize. He had memorized books. We didn't know he was as dyslexic as he was because he literally memorized chapter books. They're called the Magic Treehouse because we would listen to them all the time. That's like, at dinner time, we would put those on and we would listen. That the teachers were like, no, he's definitely not dyslexic, but we knew that there was other things going on. When he went to get his neuropsych and they took, he would a paragraph, they would do the Magic Treehouse just to see, he would read it and they would say, he would ask what book it was from. Okay, I'm going to read this. And then they took those words and put them on a piece of paper separate. He had no decoding skills. He literally memorized. So when he was in the younger grades, he would come home to me and say, Mom, can you get this book? I'm reading it in small group instruction. So he would go to the teacher and this, the things that he did to prevent him being called out, kills me. But then I'm like, he didn't know any different, right? Because he's young. He's just doing these things. He would go and ask the teacher. He would get into conversation, ask the teacher what book they were reading in small group instruction. She would tell him. He would go and ask me to get it. I would read to him. He would memorize. I didn't know this was happening. He would memorize. So then he would go to small group instruction and he would read the book, but he would be memorizing. And he did that all the way up until second grade. And that's exhausting, even me just saying it. But those are the defense mechanisms that we put up because, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it fucking loud, it has nothing to do with IQ. We are some of the most brilliant people in the world, even though Brent, I know, knocks himself because he was the athlete. The things that he is doing in hockey and his foundation, he is brilliant. It's just maybe not in science and math. Same with me. I know what I do in communications and how I can read people and all these things. What you're doing in the in the inventing space and what you did with your company and how you're helping so many people kind of have to skip those steps because they're can learn from what you have taught yourself is something that someone that struggles would never be able to do. So it has nothing to do with IQ. I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Well, I love that because a couple big takeaways here for me today has been, you're not alone.
Yeah.
We got to talk about it.
Love it.
And I really like that Brent said about the self-esteem. I think without that, you're not going to teach someone. I mean, you can, trust me, but after so many years, is my spelling better? No. Do I lean on memorizing everything? Yes, I do. That's a coping mechanism, I guess that is. Do I worry about it? No. Does it bother me? Yeah, it still bothers me, but I accept it. But I do think, number one, if you have a good foundation and you find something you are good at, it really takes the pressure off of everything else.
Yep.
I think you hit that on the nail ahead. And just trying to learn more and teach more. I had tutors every single day after school forever. It didn't help. It's like, stop that. Stop that. That's like crazy. That's craziness. Okay. And how many rocking chairs can I read? And it's like, okay, that doesn't work. Okay. So we got to find something different here. And I think you're right. If you don't firsthand really understand it, how can you really help someone?
Yeah.
And I saw that with my wife. No, you've got to find some remarkable people that really get it, been there, done it, maybe have it. Because if not, no, you're not going to force someone to figure it out, or learn or change the way they're learning. No, it's not going to happen.
Now, the other one is, we talk about strengths, and I always tell you we got to talk about our weaknesses too, to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Johnny, great. He's great over there, like in the hockey right now. Oh, you're strong with your right leg? That's okay. Because your left leg's not, or vice versa. We focus on one or the other. Oh, you're not good at this, not good at this, not good at this, not good at this. But guess what? What about I'm good at this? So it's, we all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And that's okay.
Well, I have a lot of weaknesses, but I have a lot of strengths.
Yeah. I say that right. I do too.
But do you have the ability to say back there? When was that time where you said I got a lot of strengths too? Before me personally, I got a lot of weaknesses. I would never come back with, but I got some strengths too. Now I can. But you both jumped to say you got strengths and weaknesses. So that's, tells to who you are as individuals and where you are in life and with this whole process. And that's where we can get each and every person with this. If we can do that, the world's going to be a better place.
Well, I know Brent, he's got his foundation in 2 weeks and he's got to be on the ice. So I know you got to go answer some calls. And Stephen, I know that you are also a busy man. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining Word Blindness. You guys, you know what to do, like, rate, review, and share. And what is so important is you might have listened to this and been like, oh, interesting, but you don't know who in your life, I say this every time, so I know Brent laughs because I have it exactly down. But you don't know who in your life needs to hear this. You don't know who in your life has maybe a niece or nephew, cousin, someone in their family that they're like, wait a second, they're struggling. Because again, if you don't know about it, you can't make a change. And there's nothing wrong with knowing about it. As Stephen said, he felt better once he knew his diagnosis. I know I did. I know Brent says, he was like, nothing changed, but he was also in a very interesting time in his life. That could be for a whole nother podcast. But it is an important thing to get out there and make the changes. Educating by talking and sharing stories is what connects us. So thank you again for joining Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed.